Okay, we've got both of us in here. And, yeah, just getting set up, just posting it everywhere. Trying to get as many people as possible notified. And then we'll get started.
All right, I have stream pulled up.
Sweet.
And I can hear myself on stream, so I am coming through. Seems like the audio is working.
Excellent. We've got things working. Thanks to you for figuring that out, by the way. That was the dumbest issue that it was having. But
yeah,
whatever, we figured it out. So now we're hearing the person who will be interviewing me, if he would like to introduce himself.
I'm Luke. I will be introducing Vanessa tonight. I will be questioning. I'm
Interviewing?
introducing myself. Interviewing. Yeah, there's the word.
This is starting off fantastic. It's great.
This is great. This is wonderful. This is exactly what
Get
I
the jitters
expected.
out right at the beginning.
Yeah. Interrogating. That is also a valid thing. Yes. Hello, Bales. Also known as Lavender. And also good evening to you as well, Ink.
Okay. Okay, I'm pretty sure I've posted a bunch of places, so that'll do for now.
Give it a couple minutes for people to catch up and join in.
Of course.
I don't have a lot of followers on Twitter, but
oh yeah, I gotta
probably give you a
put
retweet.
on the radio silence one too. I mentioned it earlier, but just have it retweet my.
I wish they would put quote tweet at the very top, because I always end up quoting them. Retweet, undo. Retweet with quote.
It's definitely an interrogation, yes. Alright. Yeah, we had. How many questions did we end up getting in total?
On the one where you could not see,
yes.
There are 10 questions.
Pretty good. Let's see if there's any more. I don't think I got any more on Curious Cat. Nope. So those are the 10 that we're going to be going with, and whatever comes up in the chat along the way.
Yeah.
There we go. Yes, I have the Halloween edition of. I always do every year for holidays anyway. Something special for Radio Silence. And this one is Them as Pumpkins, because I wasn't feeling up to doing anything too complicated. Good. I'm starting off really well when I drop the keyboard on my feet. Ow. This, yeah, so, making it easy on myself, except for the part where I have to do all that perspective. But I did that ahead of time, because it's like one of those cooking shows where I'm just like gestures to the completed food item that you don't have to see me struggling over. I swear the process.
I baked this ahead of time and sprayed it with chemicals to make it look nice.
Exactly. I'm fine. I dropped the keyboard on my foot, but that happens a lot. It's fine. I put it on my lap on a big pillow because this desk is all the way over here, and I'm not going to be reaching my arm all the way around to my laptop to do hotkeys, so this is the solution that I came up with.
I'm interested to see if I find any familiar faces coming in from my tweet since I destroyed my server.
Yeah.
Life sure.
Life sure.
Okay.
It's interesting. Yeah. I guess that's that. I'll start working on this. And you can decide when you're doing questions because
Yeah.
that's
Well, we'll probably get to the first question like 7:15ish.
yeah. I mean, I guess you were introduced. I guess I wasn't introduced to this thing. In
Well, it's
case,
your stream. I wouldn't imagine you would have to be, but
well, if anyone's coming in from the Culture Days thing, if I think the link goes up live on their website as soon as the event's up, so people might be finding it organically.
uh,
Um, then yes, I'm
well,
Vanessa. I am a disabled artist who works on a webcomic called Radio Silence that is um, uh, about a queer rock band, British rock band, who travels across Europe. It's their struggle with daily life and the challenges of fame on their relationships. You know, normal kind of YA stuff. It updates every Tuesday. It updated today, earlier today. You can check it out, right? RadioSilenceComic.com, all one word. And this is the Halloween special, so this is not representative of the actual comic. You can see here on the side my references for my own work um, of the
for those who
characters.
are new, putting a link in chat for everyone now who wants to go over and see it.
And yeah, if I get bored working on this Halloween one, I do have backup, you know, snazzy drawings of characters that I will be picking away at. I do flick between projects. I keep myself entertained and everything like that. So I'll try to be good and start with the Halloween thing, just so we have something on brand. Yeah, stuff's still on brand.
Oh my god, Ink.
Absolutely fantastic pun there.
Yeah, I was actually looking at some of their songs recently. Since learning to play guitar, there's actually a riff that is relatively beginner friendly that I was looking at doing. But
Yeah, so let's get started with that, I guess. Let's touch on that. I am not a musician. I would love to be, but the closest I got was probably doing piano lessons. I am making a comic about musicians as best I can with all the research and the references with people like Luke who do play instruments and can give me tips on, um, that's not what I'm going to say. The positioning of fingers on the guitar.
yeah, yeah, there it is.
And I'm working very hard to make this as PG as possible. Um,
You can do it.
I can. Uh, and as long as in conjunction with my brother, who has composed songs for my comic itself, you'll see any sheet music that is credited to Robert. Then yeah, he helped me. He write those. He went to school at McGill for composing for jazz. So, kind of a genre switch for him, but he made it work. Um, yeah, so I mean, as much as I would love to be one, this is my way of celebrating that whole thing, not after actually having to pick up an instrument myself. Because as I know, that Luke knows, it is a lot of work to learn an instrument.
It is indeed. There's a lot of nuances that some people aren't even familiar with, um, that you may hear in music, but you're not quite sure how those things are done. For instance, for those who listen to rock or metal, you may be familiar with sort of a squealy, super high pitched sound. Um, that's what's called a pinch harmonic. And what that actually is when you strum the string itself, you touch it with the side of your thumb, and the act of touching it with your skin actually changes the vibration frequency and increases it. So the vibration frequency increases, the note pitch increases, and that is something that's an extremely subtle movement that you have to do with your hands. So you can't even see it, right? When you see somebody play, it's instantaneous. It's behind their hand. You can't even can't see anything like that. But as a player, as the instrument player, it's something that is constantly in your mind that you need to do. Uh, yeah, some small nuances like that.
As accurate as I'd love to be, sometimes it comes down to time and having to have shortcuts to know the shortcuts that I can get away with enough knowledge and enough research, which is important.
Yeah,
Ugh,
they do make you pumpkins. I agree.
they are very cute. I had a fun time trying to figure out how to do hair. Leaves, vines, the knot of the um is that still
STEM.
fine? It's a stem, right? Yeah, it's a stem.
Yeah.
And yeah, a bunch of clover, I guess it was, that I saw a certain pumpkin had an overgrowth of like clover. I thought that might be
Hmm.
interesting hair.
Hey, Meteor. Welcome. If you could, Meteor, if you could do one of these pumpkins IRL, which one would you actually end up doing? If you had to pick one, or would
Yes.
it depend on which pumpkin you've already picked up? Because some of these are very specifically shaped.
Well, yes.
Probably Colby. Okay.
Yes, Colby is adorable and also very easy that you would be able to carve that one out, actually, I think. You need the
Not too
lollipop.
bad.
Yeah, he's not too bad. This is not Colby. This is Ashley that I'm working on right now.
Very friendly looking pumpkin.
Yeah. And they're going to have a very interesting, like, half carved part. You know, when you kind of just peel into the skin and you got that back glow, but it's not all the way through.
Ah, yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
Uh,
it'd be good for the beard at that point.
Alrighty.
And what else could we preface this with? Yeah, so this is for Culture Days, which is for across Ontario, but I think it's also for Canada, but specifically this is for the Brampton Library, who invited me to stream for them, which was nice. I did an event for them, and they included my book in their library system, which, if you are Canadian, there's a grant for every book of yours that's in a Canadian library available to people for taking out, and you get money back from the government because they like to support the arts in many ways. So um, they'll be checking this coming year if it was in circulation. And yeah, thanks to the Brampton Library for including mine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, are you ready for the first question of the night?
sure. Bring it.
Okay, we're gonna start off relatively easy. How did you come up with the idea for radio silence?
Well, Radio Silence, it started off as a casual role play, actually, and with characters that were a established ones that I had had for a long time, and I decided, hey, what if an AU where they were in a rock band? And then that's where the ideas just went back and forth with my best friend, and we, yeah, tossed them back and forth. We figured out who would be whatever instrument. I actually had to make additional characters, so Colby and Matt and Brent were created specifically for this comic. They've obviously become beloved of mine since then, but 5 years ago, no, 6 years ago, because 5 years ago it launched, but 6 years ago I made it. Is when I started developing those characters. Whereas Ren and Liz and Shy have existed in some form or another for, I want to say at least 15 years. Obviously not in
Huh?
the same way that they've always been. They've obviously evolved as I've evolved as a person, as you'd hope you would change over the years, that you're not, keeping the exact same values that you've always had, but they've always
Mm-hmm.
been themselves in some way. So yeah.
To bounce off of that,
Hmm.
this isn't any of the questions, but this is just for me. Did you draw inspiration for the characters that you had to make sort of on the spot? Was there any driving force behind making the personalities, or was it just a sort of
There
this
what
sounds good?
Yeah, there were kind of you always kind of look at it a group dynamic when you're looking for something like that. You're looking for the face, and Matt became the face. That's what he started off as, and you needed somebody who was the solid, brings them together person. That became Brent. You need the kind of comedic relief, which kind of became Colby. And from there, their personalities then became molded and shaped as I developed them, as I played with them a little bit. Anyone who's played any kind of role playing game, tabletop or otherwise, knows the first couple times you play the character, you're kind of just feeling them out. You
Hmm.
definitely don't have them down, and if you compared them to how you play them later, you could be kind of embarrassed because it's not really who they were. So I got to, work out those jitters ahead of time through practicing and
Very interesting.
writing out these characters. And we did get most, if not all, of the plot down back then, almost unchanged. A lot of the big plot points are still completely the same, and there's been obviously improvements along the way that I've written down certain things that I've come up with since that obviously will work better than whatever we came up with on the spot.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
for the characters specifically, they themselves changed in uh, not in any kind of dramatic way, but just became more people than they were before, where they were tropes or
Yeah,
focus.
more.
Yeah,
They like this. They do this. They have this quirk. That sort of thing. Flesh
exactly,
them out as an overall person. Yep.
exactly. Yeah,
Question for Meteor Shower in the chat. So, what is Pumpkin Matt's beard made out of?
moss. I am. Yeah,
There you go.
that's definitely gonna be moss. Whereas Ashley's is the carved bit that that happens when you kind of just
Moss
dig
beard.
into. Yeah,
Yeah.
moss beard. I want to do something different for both of them. They deserve something unique for each one.
So you mentioned that you had a lot of the story sort of already kind of figured out.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other questions we actually have is how much advanced plot do you normally have written?
Okay, let's look at chapter by chapter. I have the if I looked at chapter 5, like we're on right now, I have the actual outline of the chapter written up. I know exactly where it's going and where what it will end on, um, plot wise. But as far as scripts, I am about, if I'm lucky, like 3 ahead of myself. I'm writing scripts like
No, that's 3 pages, right? Not
three
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 chapters.
pages. Yeah, that's
Okay.
3 pages. I'm yeah, because sometimes I do come up with different things that I think would actually work better or whatever, and pieces of dialogue or otherwise that um, would work. But the actual overall arcing plot is all in a document somewhere with point form and everything like that. It
Yeah.
is unchanged.
So to summarize here, you have most of the
Hmm.
big plot points and story developed, but when it comes to actually pulling things down and making it something that is easily digestible, you're probably around 3 pages ahead of where you are at the moment of like handing out a page to the public.
Yeah, I would say that's probably accurate. Yeah. Spirit.
Okay.
I know that sounds a little nuts. It's on the seat of my pants for some of the times, but I would love to be way ahead of time. I know some people write the entire chapter out. I think that would be great. Although sometimes the pacing just doesn't fit and just doesn't work. If I did something like that, it feels less organic than the way that I've approached it the entire way. And I don't know, it kind of works for me to do it like this. It,
If it works, why change it? I mean,
yeah.
having to switch up in the middle of the way things are done could be detrimental
Yeah, who
to
knows?
the progress. So do we answered a couple questions here from the website. For those currently watching, does anyone have any questions that they would like to throw up in Twitch chat? Questions aren't restricted in any way. It's not like we have to specifically talk about radio silence or anything like that. So if you have other questions related to other things.
Yep.
Oh, hey, there we go. So Meteor Shower says, I'm actually kind of thinking about writing my own comic. Do you have any tips for scripting or any other kind of tips that you would probably want to give somebody who's just starting to get into doing comic work?
Okay. For sure, if you are thinking about doing it as a web comic or something of the like, I know this comes up a lot, but people say, don't do your big epic for the right off the bat. That one story you've hung on to for a long time. Um, I have that too. This, as I said, this was a band AU, and my canon story for this would have been 1,000 times longer than the actual one that I'm doing. This actual one has already gone on for 5 years, and almost approaching the halfway point. And this was me trying to do a short story. So try to temper your expectations for the length and try to go for something short to try and see how much you can improve in a short amount of time, because comics will challenge you in that way. They'll bring you up to um, a standard that you probably wouldn't have reached if you were doing static drawings the entire time. And having a deadline set for yourself is always fantastic. Knowing that people are waiting for whatever page at whatever time
I
really
can do an include
helps.
that. Um, to kind of bounce off of that, how do you have any tips for pacing specifically? Because I know as myself, sometimes as the dungeon master, kind of runs into issues where I have all of these things that I really want to do for my players, and I have all this stuff that I want to bring up, and it's super epic and super fun.
Hmm.
How do you do downtime? What what allows you to go? Okay, I have these like beats that I want to hit. At what point do you recognize that? Okay, I need to start putting in character stuff or development stuff to kind of move away from the plot. Like
Yeah.
how would you tell somebody how to deal with that?
Um, when I'm looking at the pacing for the plot points, say for the first book that I put out, it was basically establishing the band as a band, the background of how they got together, and their first couple stumbles, their first couple of disagreements or fights as a unit, and tearing apart the seams of what they'd already built. Um, there's also levity. There's moments in there that I found that I was able to put in more of the humility and the moments, and it really is just a balancing act of figuring out what feels natural and what feels good in terms of giving and taking. You don't want there to always be a downward spiral. Obviously, that would just kind of drain everybody. They want to see the protagonist succeed. They want to see those, even if you're in a actual arc that's like a big one that's going to drain everybody of and throw them into the ditch of, you know, the fires of challenges, they still need to find a way to succeed into and a bit of hope. So, for example, between chapters, I will toss up more. I don't know, like I'll do mini comics, and I'll throw in. I did it one for Matt and Colby that was a flashback to when they decided to and discussed making the band originally when they were teens. That really, it's not anything that would be missing if people didn't go back and find this information out, because it would just be bonus information, but it also provided people with something they were looking for, which was a little bit of cheese, a little bit of hope and cute that padded out the utter sadness that we had just had from a gut-wrenching arc that really brought the band together at the end. And it kind of just has to feel right with what you as a storyteller feel like is your pacing. Like if you want to think of it like a song, think of it like, all right, are what part are we at? Are we at a chorus? Are we at a crescendo of? Are we kind of uh, paring down or ramping down? Are we at a quiet moment? Are we? What kind of mood are we capturing here with this part?
Yeah,
Yeah,
because you don't always want to be in the high. Things are going on, things are happening.
yeah,
Because I personally believe that a lot of times the character development comes from the quiet life, the with the friends,
yes,
the talks that happen behind the scenes.
yeah.
Um,
I won't name exact names of like I'm thinking of a specific movie, but there are there are times where I'm just exhausted by watching a movie just go straight across in and never ramp up. It was just like here's an action movie and you should always be at like 100 the entire way. It's exhausting. I sat in there and I almost actually fell asleep in the theater watching this movie that people had told me was great. And I was just like, I'm actually bored. I know there's a bunch of action happening on the screen. I'm bored.
but that's all that's happening.
That's all that's happening, and you're not bringing it down. You're not bringing any kind of stakes to make it go up and down again. Like you really need to feel it out so it's not just complete straight. I know, like yeah, if you love writing an action, say if it's an action comic, you've gotta you have to throw in those quiet moments. You have to throw in downs with your ups, or it won't feel like there's a story. It will feel like one big scene,
Yeah,
unending and exhausting.
yeah, I agree. To that aspect, you you can almost invert that too. So
Absolutely.
if you're having a lot of high level octane things happen, when things go south and they get really calm and really quiet, those are those moments in like combat and battles and in war scenes when bullets are flying and things are happening, and then you take that 5 or 10 seconds and then just dead silent,
Hmm. Those are so
and then
impactful. So
it's that like
yeah,
you're on the side of your seat like gripping, like something could happen or nothing could happen, but you don't really know. And and to flip that on its head, you could have a world predominantly, normalized and going through in a normal way, and then all of a sudden this huge thing happens, and that's it spikes that action bar, if you will, up to 100, but it feels like 1,000 because you were so used to
yeah,
the normality of things.
yeah, absolutely. And I do point this out with my comic because, as some people know, I will eventually be, and I already have. I actually introduced Nora. I will be doing a crossover with Agents of the Realm, which was another music or yeah, sorry, music video, a webcomic. It's another webcomic that is about magical girls. So inherently, there's magic there. There's a whole fantasy genre, an urban fantasy genre that will be explored and is obviously canonical to my comic, which otherwise looks like something set in a very modern, very typically London, Europe, etc. as we know it. So, knowing that information going into this, can you look through it and find the little hints that I've put in? I have along the way, but when they hit outright, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Um, so Lavender asks, Joe questions, how many times have you fired your writer for for making you draw plaid?
Oh, just about every scene that I've ever done that I've decided to put Ren in plaid, I
Hmm.
decide to fire my writer. She comes back every time. I don't know how she gets back through the door, but yeah, I think that's some sort of job security thing that I'm not allowed to touch, but I do fire
But
her
some
over
like
and over.
tenure or something like that. It just keeps going back
Exactly.
to government officials, and yeah,
And
I can
I'm
see that be.
told I have to give her another chance. It's
Yeah.
awful.
Eventually, I think those couple years of tenure will be up, and you can permanently get rid of them. Uh,
Exactly. Anyone
Ink
else?
asks, when will Shunt be canon?
Um, there is a mini comic that will be, let's see, I'm going to say probably 2 years, unfortunately, at this point. But there's a mini comic that you will enjoy for that reason. That's all I'm gonna say.
Oh, you got something.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So we're gonna move away from Twitch chat for a little bit. We're gonna go back to some of the questions that were asked before the stream started. Let's see. Let's see. Okay. Here's an easy one. What do you consider the most enjoyable part of a drawing?
When
We could
it's
probably do stages.
we
Oh,
could.
nice spinning pinwheel.
Oh yeah, yeah, wonderful. Um, it's great when it's finished and I can show it to people. It's great when I am done and I can slap it down and be like, "Hey, like I made a thing.
I did it.
I
It's
finished it.
done.
I finished
I'm,
it.
I'm walking away.
I no longer
Mic
have to
drop.
see it in my eyeballs. Except I'm gonna look at it and see all the errors that I want to
There's,
fix. Yeah.
yeah.
Actually, I'm gonna do this a
Uh,
different way.
s-
So yeah, we'll go through stages. You want to just see. Um, you want to go from like
just the part.
sketch or
The question is, which one do you enjoy the most? Like, which part of a drawing do you consider the most enjoyable? So,
um.
do you like the inking? Well, we can twist this a couple different ways. So do you
Okay.
prefer the sketch work, the ink work? Do you like doing, you know, before you get to the I'm done part?
Yes.
What part do you find yourself, I wouldn't say the least stressed out by, but the one where you actually like to sit down and do it?
um, inking is a lot of fun actually. The one I'm doing right now because I've already established all of it. I've set in. I wouldn't say set in stone. I've set out a plan for myself. I have this thing that I've kind of carved out of nothingness. Uh, I can always make tweaks and changes as I'm inking, and I realize, oh, this should have been over here. But for the most part, it's kind of mindless. I get to turn the opacity down. I get to turn the music up. I get to just go at it with a thick black uh, ink pen because I've always used thick lines, but if it feels relaxing because I get to turn my brain off, but I still get to create, which is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's not challenging. Um, the challenging parts obviously are where I improve, but it's sometimes great to just do the thing and see
Yeah.
results like that are already kind of mapped out for myself.
So the inking for you is kind of like that step towards the finalization where here it is, like actuality, this
Yeah.
is what it is, and you have sort of guidelines that you get to work within.
Exactly. And where I wouldn't say color is unfun, there's a lot of thinking involved I put back in because now
Mm-hmm.
I'm having to do color theory. Even if I have like the colors picked out for most of the scene, it's still a matter of drawing into it and pulling out backgrounds that don't clash. New background characters who I have to push back and not make them the focus. So obviously they can't wear something bright and eye-catching. It's all kinds of thinking that comes back into it. So it's kind of like a break because a webcomic page will be going from sketch to ink to colors and final tweaks. It's a nice break in the middle where I get to turn my brain off for a day. So it's it's a nice reprieve.
Hmm. Um, to twist this again,
Mhm.
what physical part of a drawing, like I remember you saying before to me that you really enjoy portraits.
Absolutely.
So, so if you had to pick like one aspect or one concept you had to stick with for the rest of your life, what would you choose? What would be your medium? Would you stay with portraits, caricatures, background? Obviously not, but you get my point.
Yeah, there's no way I'd ever select backgrounds for that. Um, Although people will compliment my backgrounds, I know I spend enough time on them to probably earn a bit of praise. It's nothing that I'd enjoy whatsoever. Portraits, if I had to be, someone was like, yo, holding a knife to me and saying, you will never draw anything but. At least portraits are a lot of fun. I could get a lot of character in with them, and then I don't have to draw hands, which are great to not have to do. Um, as any artist will tell you, they are one of the most complicated parts. Uh, and uh, and yeah, so I can just draw. So you're telling me that if this happened, I could just do character portraits like frickin' D&D characters or something. That my rest of my life,
Hmm.
I'd be set. I'd be happy. I'd be thrilled.
Okay, I'll mark that question as answered. All right. Okay. So let's go off of that. So speaking of Dungeons and Dragons, we have a question here. How did you first get into D&D?
I okay. I went to Sheridan College for animation, and so that makes me a huge nerd already in that sense. So of course there are
Naturally.
people who, yeah, of course, us animators will know. Even though I don't really count as an animator anymore, I still say us animators. I spent enough time doing it, I can claim to be one still.
Us
Uh,
in the Vogue community.
us of the Poe community. Um, yeah, the we decided to get together, and I have uh I think it was Ryan who first introduced me to it, who was a friend from uh animation and fundamentals, which was what course I took before getting into animation. Um, and he showed us how to play. We played 3.5 because we old folk. And I think 4 had only just come out or was just coming out, and he didn't know it very well at the time, so we kind of just went for what he knew, as he was a DM anyway. We played like one session before that fell apart, but we played quite a few other one-offs with him over the years. And my first one that was an actual campaign was with one of my professors, actually, who decided to run one for a bunch of us um, in the studio itself. And I, being a good student, decided I'll pass. I know this sounds like a lot of fun, but I have work to do and I'm very responsible. Now, my desk was right next to the big table that was supposed to be a conference table for people doing meetings to discuss their films and their work and whatever. And they're all rolling dice, playing over a mat with little magnet characters and everything. And
Ah, the allure of the click clack math rocks came early.
I was tempted. I was sitting right there at the end of the aisle, and all I had to hear was that, and I just was so twitchy. They were playing one of the most stereotypical like introductions, and everyone was playing characters who were baby's first D&D character.
So rogues and fighters.
Yeah, rangers and yeah, rogues, rangers, cleric. We had yeah, and I was like, all right, um, I'm you're all elves and humans and whatever. I'm an orc barbarian, and I'm gonna come in here as Mama, the big, happy, that barely speaking English properly barbarian who is going to come in here and hug all of you and forgive the fact that you're all quite mean to her because she doesn't know any better. She thinks you're being nice. And yeah, it was all downhill from there. I haven't stopped playing really. We kind of stopped over the years because obviously that campaign finished. The next one kind of fizzled out because we had films to do. Real life came in, but yeah, I finally started playing 5 when it came out, and that was a new avenue opening up because that was a lot more friendly for a lot of people to join in.
Yeah.
Yeah, than 4. But I will say 4 is fun.
Here it is. Here it is.
4 is fun, and people should stop making fun of 4th edition. I know I have nice memories of it, but I have played that Pathfinder, uh, Shadowrun, a whole bunch of other ones. I loved 4. 4 was
Look,
nice to
okay.
me.
I'm gonna say this: Dungeons and Dragons, like fourth 3.5, is like math for normal people, and Pathfinder is like math for nerds. Like I've done a little bit of Pathfinder, and I walked into it, and I'm like, there's so many numbers on this character sheet. I don't even know what half of these do, or
Yeah,
where they're applied, or anything about it. I got like 2 sessions of the Pathfinder with a friend, and I was like, this is. I can get why some people enjoy this because apparently there's like avenues you can go down where you can get some really insane amount of skills and specific stuff and stuff like that. That's cool.
of
That's cool.
course, yes.
But for me, fuck that noise.
I just want to tell a story. I don't want to have
Yeah.
to sit here and do 5 billion different types of math. I am not in school for at least not for
Come back
that.
around to me. I got my abacus out. I need to hang on.
Yeah, yeah. It and 4 was nice and friendly, and I mean I haven't played 4 in forever, so I'm looking it through it with like rose tinted glasses because I'm sure if I went back now I'd probably be like, okay, there's probably a lot of problems with this that are really boring, and I remember specifically combat taking forever, so I can agree on that part, but it's not as bad as everyone is making it out to be, and I want to fight everybody is mean to me about 4. 4 brought me into the fold, and I will forever be grateful for that. Even though I would play 3.5 first, 4 is what hooked me in, what brought me into that world a lot better. Yeah, and I
And I
guess
think a lot of the I think a lot of the flack for 4 comes from those who have played 3.5 for a majority
maybe,
of
yeah.
things. Or because correct me if I'm wrong, but 4th edition wasn't around for very long before 5th edition came out, right? It was kind of a
It
weird.
it did have like a pretty short shelf life for sure. And I
Yeah.
specifically remember going to PAX while they were still while it was D&D Next was what 5th edition was what they were calling it when they were doing it in like playtesting and stuff like that. I remember
Hmm.
doing a bit of that and getting really excited because all these changes seemed really cool because they actually were listening to people what they specifically wanted because 4 was more video gamey than most tabletop people would have preferred essentially.
Hmm.
Yeah. I guess it's worth mentioning that that probably did stem from the fact that I do a lot of D&D artwork, but I also design merch, or I have designed merch for Wizards of the Coast, official Dungeons and Dragons
Hmm.
dice bags, and there will be actually a plushie that's coming out this month. I don't know an exact date yet because they haven't told me. I probably should have looked into that before mentioning it, but yeah, it is going to be good.
Plushie being worked on.
I mean, it's been done for months. It's just a matter of releasing it. I'm pretty excited. There's another plushie that's being worked on, but it's less dungeons and more dragons.
Uh, Ink brings up a good point in chat. 4 gave us a lot of things in 5 that we really needed, like cantrips. Now, I'm a 5 baby, so I've never played 4th edition or 3.5. Did you guys seriously not have cantrips back then? Like, what were the spellcasters supposed to do? All right, guys, I'm going home. I'm done. I've casted my spells. I'm just gonna go sit in the back with a plate of like chips and cheese. Go have fun.
Well, that's why spellcasters still have weapon proficiencies, right? They are expected to still be able to hit something in some way.
Yeah, but their health pool, like.
Well, that's their fault if they've used their spells wrong. I look, you know me. I'm not using magic. I can't answer these questions, man. I can't even tell you what spells do. Spells are weird. Barbarians will always be a comfort food to me. I enjoy the big smack. I will
Smash, smash.
smash, and I will just survive as long as possible with my beefy health.
Yep. Ing says pretty much if you ran out of spells as a wizard in 3.5, you had a d4 of health and a staff.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you don't know what you guys were missing out on there because, and what you would have suffered through is what more of what I mean for that.
So, speaking of D&D,
Yes.
when are we going to get more of Kat and Damien? When?
Is that an actual question?
That is an actual question for you.
Well, I guess that's partly your question because you, as my dungeon master for Cat, would be the one to know if we're getting more Damien stuff, unless they specifically mean artwork, which obviously falls onto me as the group artist who draws most of our party's artwork.
Bales is yelling at me in chat. So I know who asked this question because I'm pretty sure there's a very specific person in the Radio Silence Discord that is a very big fan of Kat and Damien.
I think you're probably right, actually. Yeah.
So hopefully they're watching the live stream, or maybe it can be pointed towards it. So the group has definitely gone through some things.
You could say that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
They're at a point, ideally, where their actions are probably going to cause some rippling effects with Damien, depending on how they move forward. I have some things in the background as a dungeon master for what Damien's life, has been and is going to be. But of course, I treat a lot of my, or I try to, my NPCs as proper NPCs. As a DM, I am God and I do control the world, but I don't want to control the people in the world. The people are controlled by themselves based on the circumstances that they find themselves in. So a lot of the times as a dungeon master, I will not force an NPC into a situation that doesn't make sense because it kind of pulls the players out of the world. It kind of starts feeling a little shoehorned. So more often than not, I have a plan set up where this person talks to that person and gets this set up and moves these things forward based on how things have happened, and because of that this will happen. So what that means a lot of the times is my NPCs are very humanistic, that if they see an opportunity to come up with the players, the things I can't control, they'll take it. And that might screw me up because I had all of the stuff I was going to do should they continue along the same path. So to answer the question, when are we going to get more of Kat and Damien, that really falls onto the party and how they're going to interact with Damien, and especially after the next session or two, because I have some things planned.
Well,
That are
that's
going to be
ominous.
quite interesting.
Oh no.
There's definitely gonna be some backstory rearing its head for a couple of the players, uh, and that itself could influence.
So are you telling me that there might be a chance there was never any more Cat and Damien? For this poor soul who has asked this question, we should clarify.
I wouldn't say there would never be any more Cat and Damien. I would say that a strain could be put on the relationship.
Okay.
Uh, what do you mean no more? Look, as it stands right now, these two clearly have an investment in each other. So Damien wouldn't leave. There would be a strain on the relationship would definitely be put down. But Damien has a personality and some of his own issues that would keep him close by in whatever terminology that or whatever actuality I mean by that.
Ominous is all I'll say. That is very ominous.
So basically, one more Cat and Damien. Honestly, that's up to the players. That depends on how the players continue to interact in this moment in time because there's a lot of stuff happening in the game. We've had a player death, a near player death. One of the backstories of one of my players has shown up, and then they're transitioning into a town to take care of some things, and there's a lot of stress on the party at the moment, and that stress could pull them away from Damien or bring them closer to him. Just depends on how it works out.
Okay. I feel like this question was probably not asked for such a serious answer, but I am glad that we've gotten one. Like, not in the sense that they thought that they would get so much from you. Uh, I love those two. If you haven't already, hadn't known already, I have a D&D art book out that is 104 pages. It's a PDF. I don't know, Luke, if you can grab the link for it. Gumroad link.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's pay what you want. And it has a lot of writing of backstory stuff. It has a lot of artwork. It is only just mostly things I drew this year, which surprised me how much I had drawn. But when you have a dungeon master like Luke who inspires a lot of that with what was it? What did it end up being? Over 40 pages of cat stuff in there. Yeah. Uh,
There certainly is a lot of situation that I put the group through.
yeah. Which is yeah, inspires a lot of drawings, happy or otherwise. Gotta get those emotions out.
Yes, for those who have seen the artwork that has been posted, it's a very I as a DM like to enforce in the players' minds that the world around you is large and full of how do I put this? People who are stronger than you, basically.
We got put in our place a lot.
Yep.
We're only at level 4. We get our asses handed to us. At least, okay, there's 3 people in our party. We have all died once.
Yep. A couple of those were my fault for balancing issues, and that was rectified. But this is very much so beginner adventurers going off and doing their own thing, and situations that would have called for assistance or not intervening at all where the players intervened and got bit in the ass for it.
Yep.
Bit in the butt. I don't know,
Y-
I could say that one, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to be careful. My natural tendencies is swearing is a part of my vocabulary, so
Yeah,
trying to be careful with
you
that.
already dropped an F-bomb, so
I
I
did.
think
I
we are good.
apologize.
I think we're good for a number of those that we gotta include. Yeah, yeah. Let's see.
Yeah.
Any other D&D related things?
Let me check.
Or unless there's
Um,
people in the chat who might also, if we don't have one, just to keep on topic, and then otherwise we can move on back to comic stuff. But
yeah, if you guys have any D&D related questions, now would be a good time to get them out. Yes, I am the DM for Vanessa, who plays Kat. Lavender in the chat plays the Sork, and we have a third member who plays a
what does he play?
monk cleric.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not
He sure
surprised.
acts like a rogue.
I'm not surprised that you're gonna call him a rogue because he does act like one without all the benefits.
Yeah. Who has lost an eye twice?
Not the same eye though.
Nope. Nope, but he sure
Not blind yet.
went into yeah.
Somehow he's not yet blind, having lost two
Yeah.
eyes.
Someone tell them the physics story. Oh, poor Warlock. So the physics story. I'm guessing you mean the catapult story. In that case, Vanessa, this is your stream. Would you like to tell the catapult story?
From my point of view, this dumbass, whom I love, but is very suicidal when it comes to anything that he does, decided that since we were basically losing this fight, which was against an entire city's invasion worth of goblins and other creatures, and
Could have ran away.
and we most certainly could have run away, but we are not the type of people to have left an entire city worth of people willingly left it. He saw a catapult and decided to charge at it with the gall of, I don't know, a drunken teenager at his first frat party, thinking that he was going to jump off a roof and then realizing as he's skidding to the side of the roof that, oh no, I'm not making it. So what did he do? He cut the rope.
So he was trying to disable the catapult.
Yes.
So to give some context to the chat, this town was mining something from somewhere, and what they were mining out were essentially these explosive arcane rocks, where if you touched any level of magic next to them would prime them unstably. And when these rocks had a big enough impact against the ground, kind of like firecracker or the cherry bombs or whatever those things are called, the little like black powder things thrown on the ground, they pop. These would be flung from a catapult and used like explosive bombs, essentially like long range bombs. So Abe naturally went, well, we can't have that. So runs up to one of the catapults. Originally, he had plans to like smack the rocks together and like self-detonate.
Of course he did. Yeah. I do
And we
remember.
were like, I, as a dungeon master, went, okay, hang on, guys. Your character would know that these rocks require a magical charge, and the ones that you have are not magically charged.
So you would literally be smacking some rocks together.
You would literally be smacking rocks together. So he runs up, he does a couple of different things, none of them turn out to work, and decides in a fit of like, well, I gotta do something. I had him roll an int check to see if he knew how ricochets work, or catapults work, because weaponry that knows weaponry. I let him. I to him like, oh yeah, there's a rope that looks like it's holding something down, so he cuts it, to disarm it. And then I start laughing, and
Yeah.
then almost universally, everyone goes, "Oh no!" and I go, "Oh yes." The monk cleric gets flung from the catapult because he released the catapult arm all the way across into the fortified wall that surrounded the cities with a resounding crack. That's enough damage to knock him unconscious. And of
Yeah.
course, there's like 15 goblins that just watched this man fling himself into a wall and fall to the ground unconscious. And they just all start dying. They're all laughing. It's the funniest thing that they've seen in a while. And that gave enough time for Kat to drag the two unconscious bodies out of the village, with the goblins throwing some choice words and some long, like, missing arrows to put pressure on them for them to leave. Yeah, very interesting time. 10C8 says, when do we get to see Thumb get punched?
Okay. First of all, I applaud that the entirety of the readership has decided to go ahead and call this guy Thom, but his name is Tom. I will have you know. You can defiantly call him otherwise, but I should clarify that they actually do mean Tom. He is the current antagonist of this arc. He his perfect face is not marred by any punches yet, and he's made it this far in life. Who's to say he's gonna get any in the meantime? Do you think he deserves any?
He certainly is a person.
He certainly has made some choices.
Uh, he must be punched, apparently. Okay. For those in chat, question for chat. We're going to turn this around on you guys. Who do you think is going to be the first person to snap and punch him? If you guys had to take a guess,
I can't
who would be the
tell
first
you.
one?
I can't tell you what. I can tell you how likely your answer is to be correct, but that doesn't mean it will be.
Okay, all right. Meteor Showers is probably Matt, maybe Brent.
That's interesting because
AG.
you yourself had decided Brent, right?
I believe so, yes. AG8700 says Shy, and Meteor Shower also goes, ooh, Shy. Matt is already super pissed.
Yes, he definitely is.
Karmic justice, I agree. Okay. Bale says, I don't think Liz would get physical, but I think she'll snap first.
Huh. It's interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the first time I've heard Liz being brought up in that, but it might be because of the newest page. She is definitely not happy with how things are unfolding.
Let's see here. Okay. Tongue thrashing. So, earlier in the stream, we discussed the character designs when
Yes.
you mentioned, that you would make these characters up to bring into the band. This question is, how long did it take for you to finalize the designs of your characters?
Oh, okay. The designs, artwork wise, they basically never settle down. I feel like I'm still figuring out shorthands or changes because my style keeps changing. one of
Hmm.
those inherent like difficulties of working on something for so long. I do know that it took a while to get certain features down that the way I wanted them to. I think I want to say Shy was completely and utterly finished by the start of it, and that's just inherent from his design was evolved over years and years. Whereas someone
Hmm.
like Matt and Brent, it took a while to for me to kind of fall into the place of like, okay, how do I approach this body type? I haven't really challenged myself with having a character so top heavy or so middle heavy that Matt is, and it it took a while, but I think I've finally figured out a shorthand, probably partway through the first book, and now I'm still figuring out ways. I'm like, ah, oh, here we go, unlocked the secret to big arms, or you know, suggesting a bit of a belly or whatever.
Hmm. So in that case, it's kind of an ongoing process then.
In a way, yes. In another way, I think it was very easy for me as someone with an animation background to go. Everyone needs to have a very unique silhouette because you need to tell when they're backlit, for example, who's who.
Hmm.
There's a very recent page that where they are all backlit and on the stage with their instrument, and it helps to know which instrument belongs to which person. But in the same sense, you still should know who is who from a glance in that way, because that's how what was drilled into us in school for character design. So yeah, they all have something unique about them in a way, in a sense that they've always had. Colby's hair, um, let's see, Matt's beard came later. It was more of like just his style in general and his poise. Brent's shape, um, Ren being female, but also her hair is obviously iconic. Um,
Yep.
and Shy's size versus his posture and the way he carries himself.
So, question for me:
Hmm.
is there a part of any of the characters that you developed that you've solidified that the audience has not yet seen?
Let's see. I would say very few people have picked up on a lot of hints from one person in particular's visual um, markings. I think that gives
Okay.
it away. But there are ways this person has been marked in some sort of way that is definitely not like visible in any kind of daily life. So very few people probably in their life has even seen um, these things.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So there are definitely still aspects of the characters that you have developed that haven't really worked their way through. Something that you've already solidified as a yes, this is part of them,
Yep.
but hasn't been released into the comic yet, even though it's been 5 years down the line now.
Yep. And I know exactly where I intend on at least giving a chance of people seeing it. Unless you're on a Patreon, and then you've probably seen there are pinups. So quite literally, very little is hidden from most people in that sense.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
Nothing completely nude. It's just tasteful pinups. Um,
Tasteful lewds.
sure. And so in that case, you might be able to look through and kind of with a critical eye try to figure out what I mean. Um,
All right, everyone, Easter egg hunt time.
Apparently, uh, but in that sense, it also kind of it doesn't give away a lot either. Even if you did notice it, you might not have the context. I gave context last chapter for one character's scar. Um, I can point that out. There's a scar that's been there from the beginning, and I had maybe two readers. I mean, this is judging off of comments that people say, and I know not a lot of people comment. They might have picked things up, and I have no knowledge of if they did or not. But they
Hmm.
pointed out this scar, and were able to point that out. And they didn't have the context until the last chapter, and in the same way, they won't have the context for this other person's or this other thing for a while. Probably not a couple of more chapters coming by. Got a drip feed, man, that you know as a DM, you can't just splash out backstory everywhere, or it, it what else do you have to hang over everybody's heads?
Gotta keep that carrot on that stick.
Exactly.
Okay. So we did touch upon this earlier when we were talking about the origin of radio silence.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but this specific question talks about inspiration. So, what are some of the media that most inspires you for radio silence? I'm curious about what you use as inspiration for not just the music, but also for the stories.
Hmm. Inspiration. I like a lot of movies that, and I'm going to point out Empire Records is one of my favorite movies. This would be a good example of this. Um, it's all about um, the aspect of friendship. Oh, what's going on? Um, that I have a giant line across my page somehow. I don't know when that showed up, but
Well, naturally, we have to ink it
we
in.
now just have to
So,
fixate on it. Um, yes, so the story itself for that particular example is about, it focuses in on a day in the life of that character, of this group of characters. I always found that fascinating. I would like the real aspect of the daily life, the type of webcomic that genre that it is. It's like slice of life, but a lot of the times what that is categorized as is autobiographical. Ha ha, this is so relatable. I'm going to put it up on Reddit. It's a 4-panel comic. More of what I mean is more of like, I want a glimpse on into someone's life, the good and the bad, the the intimate moments that they never want you to see, where they are vulnerable, and as well as their highs, the best of their moments. I want to celebrate alongside them. Um, that kind of fiction um, really is what does it for me. What grabs me with the story. I and when it comes to music, I've shared a ton of playlists that actually just completely took me in directions that I wasn't expecting to incorporate. Because what I do for every page is I title the page via lyrics, and then I include that song in the author comic comments, and it's always relevant to the page itself in some way or another, whether it's obvious to the readers or not. I might be actually hinting at a secret element that's not quite as obvious in the actual comic.
hmm
So it's a bit of both. It's a bit of uh, melancholic, personal uh, works. So I did actually make a reference to Empire Records in the first comic ever page in the prologue. Or no, it was the prologue itself. Yeah, um, which was a lot of fun to give a little homage. But at the same sense, I always reference Josie and the Pussycats from 2001. I think it was 2001. And that is full on like parody, and goofy, and in a completely different way. It is uh, touching and very uh, sensual to the character relationships. So any kind of film that can manage to do both really strikes a chord with what I wanted to do with my comic.
Okay. So you really do take aspiration or inspiration from the really like low driven life
Yes.
readings. The your lows are really low. That makes your highs even higher, sort of thing.
Yep. I I don't see myself getting very excited over at least not investing myself in a years long project where it is something like action, superhero, or um, like, I don't know, something more where the plot is about the things that happen instead of the characters. I would much more rather the personal story than the overarching. You could easily swap out the band of heroes because that doesn't really affect whatever happens kind of story.
I see.
Yeah.
Character relationship.
Yep.
You, the reader, and the characters are more important than you, the reader, and the plot.
Yeah. Obviously, plot's great to drive along story or character
Yeah.
development, I mean, but I can forgive like tropey stories if you can give me character development that is very genuine.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. With that sentiment, I personally also really like learning about the characters because it makes moments in the actual story, whatever they may be, so much more impactful because you've spent so much time learning about this person.
Yeah,
You know, you're not thrown into disposable people because you learn a million different names and a million different things about this plot and all of this crazy intricacies, and then somebody dies and you're like, okay, because they were just another name.
exactly.
Um, so AG8700 writes, or as opposed to a question in chat a little bit ago, what is your one favorite thing about each bus member?
Let's see. I'll go through with via the pumpkins, I think. Um, let's start from the top. Brent, um, I absolutely love that he is a rock and a force that is solid for everyone to fall back on. And I say that very carefully worded because I know all of you could, especially like Lavender in the chat, could probably figure out there are going to be lows where they need to fall back on each other. And that is the core of what the storytelling I'm doing is that it's them for first and foremost. Brent is the person who sees everything that's going on. He doesn't talk about it. He's there. He knows everything, but it's not his business to go and pry unless he thinks you're going to be hurting yourself. I absolutely love that about him. Um, Willow is one of the new additions. She's very sweet, but she also has like a feistiness, and I think a lot of you are actually going to really enjoy that once I think she finally rejoins the group and gets to meet Tom. That's where I'll leave that. Ren, Ren is my absolute wild child baby. She, um, I think what I like most about her is that I can hide so many layers into her that she only lets you see what she wants you to see. If you start peeling back layers that she doesn't want you to see, you're going to get a backlash. So take your time with her and you will be rewarded with information. And hopefully, someone like Shy can learn to do that. And speaking of Shy, I absolutely love that he kind of pushes things um, like trope wise against the grain. He um, he still has features that you would expect from someone who is like smaller their whole life. They probably do have a shorter temper, and he might. You haven't seen it yet, but he might. I love that he is very genuine to himself, even if he doesn't let himself express it properly. He hasn't had the avenue, and he's finally learning how to be himself around friends. This is the first time he's had genuine friends, and it's very sweet to watch him adjust to trusting people that do genuinely want the best for him. And Colby is a sweetheart who needs a big hug and does. I think, in the same sense, he does kind of push against the grain of what you'd expect from a rich, privileged white guy from London. He didn't fall into the same trap and syndrome that Tom did, and I hope that that's pretty obvious that it's supposed to be a direct comparison, kind of mirror, but like a parallel universe almost version where sure his dad probably would love to have had Tom as his son, but he's got Colby, and Colby, who has a soft heart and lots of feelings and lots of um, genuine love for his friends and desperately seeks approval, wants to be helpful and wants to be there for all those big moments and stick with the highs and ignore the lows where he can. He's very sweet, and he has a sweet tooth because, of course, he does. He always has something like a lollipop in his mouth, like he does in this drawing. Let's see. Liz, I've had around in my head for so long, and she's almost unchanged from when I had her, like, conceptualized back in, I don't even want to say how long ago that was, but
Hmm.
she's a very solid, analytical person that knows what to do and knows, I think, in the sense that I don't view myself as being capable of being a problem solver and being on the ball with choosing things and making decisions as soon as possible. She's there, she's got the ideas, she knows what to do. She jumps in, has the clear head, makes the decisions, and sticks with them, sticks by her own convictions. Um, Matt has a ton of charisma, and he is also sticks by his own decisions in a way that is also could be the wrong decision, but he's gonna stick by it until you point out, hey, maybe like Shy did, maybe you should step off and let me live my own life in a way that is not detrimental to my own growth. Um, he also means well. He is a character actually that challenges me the most to write. He It's easy to write down when you're writing designing a character, saying, here's a really charismatic guy who, is very charming and he knows um, exactly what to say, and he will, come up with a great decisions and inspire everybody. Okay, cool. Also, how do I write that when I'm not that person? How do I come up with that clever thing that's supposed to be said in this moment? Great. I've set myself up for failure. And a lot of times I've I've struggled over it, but I've had people compliment what he said, and I finally looked at it and said, well, obviously I've drawn it from somewhere. I've found that part of somebody, maybe not me, because I don't think that that's me, but I found it somewhere. It's in there. And then Ashley is just a bundle of fun mischief. It's probably like my chaos gremlin of the bus, because of course I had to have one, because I am one. I had to have
Mm-hmm.
somebody who was going to cause a bit of mischief in the background and will have a bit of mystery to them because they're a they're a secondary character, but almost like a tertiary character. They they will never have a focus of the plot on them unless it's a side comic. Um, but they had certainly have a lot going on in their life that would make up a whole comic if I wanted it to.
Well, that's an interesting tidbit. I had so many questions going through that I was holding on to, and they all just left.
Oh
All just
no.
disappeared while listening. um, I think you pull on that with Matt. I think that is something that you pull upon because of your closeness to some of your friends.
Sure. Yeah.
I think that personality is there when it comes to maybe not when it comes to decisions and helping other people. I feel like that part is there, but a little hard to see when you're in the middle of making a comic and it's not like a direct person to person thing. So we got a lot of people, a little bit in chat, but people are very interested in seeing Willow snap.
Willow, if you know how an Indian woman gets angry, you kind of have the right idea of what you should expect. She is a first generation Indian woman. She can get angry and defensive.
All right, so mark that answer as read,
Yeah,
or mark that question
that's
as answered.
answered, yeah.
I can English.
I mean, I have been doing most of the English. You can do the rest of it.
Okay, I will try. No guarantees that it's going to be very good. Okay. All right. So sticking on this particular train, going off of favorites, what is your favorite part of writing Radio Silence?
Writing it, I actually have a lot of fun writing the slang. I'd have done a ton of research to try and figure out how to make um, the dialogue as natural as possible. I want it to sound like it's being said, not that this is something someone has carefully thought of to recite to you, including the ums, the stutters, the um, Ren falls back on Scott's a lot, which you'll see in the most recent comic that Tom is trying to break her of because he feels like it's dirty and it's like when people say, "Oh, you use a lot of filler words too much. It's very unprofessional. You shouldn't use like so much." It's like no, that does actually serve a purpose in speech.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have to agree with that. I've noticed a lot of the dialogue is something that is clearly said in the head while reading. You know, you can hear the voices you make up for the characters. You can hear in your head saying these particular things, and I find that in reading some select books that I've read, dialogue that is mulled over and carefully chosen and filled with synonyms and over multi-syllabic words that are fucking or that are huge for the sake of being huge and not really adding anything to the conversation becomes a bore and almost difficult to read through. So I will commend the dialogue being more natural and flowing,
Thank you.
and it also does serve a very good job to put the characters in the right headspace. You know, when somebody is duressed, their words are going to be, completely cut out of one sentence and move into a completely different sentence.
Yeah, exactly. And in the same way, um, like I was saying with Matt, thinking of something charismatic to say in the moment, I don't want it to sound like one of those things, like the recited um, big speech moments, like he had spent time looking in the mirror, pretend like I want it to sound natural. I want to sound like it was flowing out of him in the moment to be inspiring. Um, so it's a struggle, it's a balance between, yeah, obviously I sat here thinking of every single word and choosing them very carefully. I don't want it to sound like that when you read it.
Exactly. Twitch chat is filled with everyone loves Ren essentially. And says I love it when Ren falls back into Gaelic. if somebody says there's too many filler words in comic dialogue, that they would hate to hear me talking IRL.
Yeah.
Half of my sentences are filled with I do say a lot.
Yeah.
Probably more than I would like, and it is something that I have been trying to break myself of, especially DMing. I try very hard not to put too many filler words in because I want the scene to be flowing and sound scripted, even though I'm pulling everything out of my butt because I didn't think that you guys would end up in this location. I'm making a shot from scratch in my head.
Yes. It is a dance between the two. And a lot of the times it's practiced like through D&D that has helped for exactly that. I've had to make up entire things like when Kat rolled 2 nat 1s on her insight and had a meltdown.
Oof.
I had to come up with on the spot a complete reason why she would think the worst of the situation and go on an entire tangential rant in her
That,
headspace in the
mm-hmm.
moment and coming up with that.
Very good. Tenshi brings up filler words signal the character's mood, their background, confidence level, etc. And I definitely 100% agree. Dialogue and speech itself is so indicative of the character. You know, if you have computerized lines being spit out from people, it's very easy to lose yourself in the. It almost come monotone in a way.
Yeah.
And the filler words definitely bring out the characters, especially in the moments. You know, and as a comic writer, you know, putting italics on specific words to represent the inflection that would be said with that one word. You
Mm-hmm.
know, in natural speech, when you're trying to get a point across, or you're trying to take a jab at somebody without everyone around you hearing or noticing. You know, you might put more emphasis on a specific word. There's a lot of
Yes,
little cool tricks that you can do like that. Yeah.
absolutely. And when you don't have that element of being able to say something out loud, you really have to figure out how to creatively um, establish that and communicate it in a comic format. Uh,
So going off of the dialogue and writing here,
yeah.
how how do you create a character for writing in comics? So kind of what process do you go through when you have to come up with a character?
I want to figure out why they're there and what they have been doing before they were there. What brought them to this moment and what brought them here? Sometimes when I'm daydreaming because of these comics with the big crowd scenes, sometimes it's so monotonous that I'm sitting there daydreaming about these characters and making up a whole thing about them. Because why not? I'm having to sit here for another 5 hours anyway. I'll might as well come up with stories of how this person and that person came together, but now with this person and that person because interesting things happen in the bathroom if you want to. But yeah, it becomes a whole story, and it's really easy once you're comfortable with deciding like these are all real people, and if you look around at everybody, they all have their own stories. I don't know if you've ever done this, but um I used to have a big commute, and it was so much fun to look out the window or look around and just kind of daydream about, okay, all these people have lives and they are the main character of their own story. How interesting is that? How interesting is it that there's all of this happening around me and I will never know their actual story, but it's out there and it exists. It brought them to this moment, and never again will we have this moment. I don't know. I'm just an artist at heart, and I look at things from a very
Well,
silly
that's actually a real thing
story.
too. That's
Okay.
actually a real psychological thing. It actually has to deal with the fact that some people have a very hard time understanding that the life you live and the people you see are doing the same thing you are. There's a I don't this isn't the correct terminology, but it's almost NPC syndrome. You know,
Hmm.
you view the person that you see at Starbucks as a face of Starbucks, or somebody who might just be walking down the street as a neighbor, as somebody who just exists next to you,
There's a
but not.
depersonalization to it. Yes. Yeah.
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 And when you go through life, and I believe this falls back upon the self not self-preservation, but monotony, and trying to ensure that we as humans aren't overstimulated by the concept that everyone is their own, everyone is their own main character in their own story. There's that sort of disconnect that we do with other people passing by, and just seeing them as a walking bag of flesh, rather than somebody who has emotion and pain, and who have gone through life experience and had X, Y, or Z things happen to them. And when you take a step back and you start to realize that everyone in this cafeteria, or everyone in this classroom, or everyone in this whatever school has a mom and a dad, and possibly brothers or sisters, has had love and emotion towards somebody, or has gone through heartbreak, or has had super invasive surgery, or has gone through all of these things, or even understanding that some easy things for you are difficult for them, like so much as uh oh, it's really easy, I could pick this up and do it in 5 minutes. Why can't you understand math, or why can't you do these things? And sort of get to the point where you realize that people have completely different brain chemistry, completely different thinking processes. They can't even grasp some of the stuff you understand, just because their brain physically is just not wired like yours,
Yeah.
and vice versa. Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's fun sometimes, and that itself has, I think, actually, if I think correctly, if I remember correctly, it Willow, uh, Willow was a concept at the time, but I saw someone in a Tim Hortons line and was like, "That's Willow." That, and I kind of observed her for a little bit, not in a creepy way because I was in the line, and what else do I have to look at other than looking forward? But I got enough of a glimpse in order to get an idea in my head, in order to think on who she is more. And
Mhm.
really, life can throw you things like that, or it could be inspirations from a song. I've definitely made characters literally just from listening to a song and daydreaming. Any kind of um, creator can tell you that they all had a moment where they've listened to a song and made an entire like animatic in their head of what a music video or whatever would look like, an animated short or something. Uh,
We all make movies in our heads to music.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And in the same sense, you've created characters for that, or maybe you use the same ones, but they, like I did for Radio Silence, but they've obviously changed. These aren't the same characters as they are in the quote unquote canon, which is not canon anymore. I guess this is the canon now. I don't know how to deal with that, but uh, yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
compassion towards IRL NPCs. Start the movement. Uh, I agree. As I told Vanessa before, one of my biggest things is I love I love the quote unquote worker bees. I love the people who have to do the more people forward jobs, the people centric jobs, the ones that have to watch people come in and come out. And whether that's Starbucks or Staples or Best Buy or McDonald's or a waitress, or those sort of jobs. I always sit down there and I deeply appreciate what they do, because we've all seen those people. We've all heard those people.
yep,
And these workers don't just get to, hear them in the background and leave after they're done. They have to live it. And it's always been a personal drive of mine to try to treat these people as best as I can, because, the person after me could be the exact opposite of me. They could be the people who feel like, they walk into a restaurant and everyone knows there owes them everything, and I'm tipping you and I'm paying your job, so you have to, wait on me hand and foot. We're never gonna stop hearing and seeing them. Retail therapy, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, those people. Um so yeah, I agree when it comes to making characters.
They have to,
Me personally.
yeah, they have to
Go
feel
ahead.
like there's a person there. And whether or not that starts out with you basing them on anything is up to you as a person. What drives you to be interested in a character? What keeps you
Yeah.
interested in a character? Um, what do you want to know about this person if you were writing an entire story about them? Um, and things like that. And that stuff could just never come out. I know there's stuff about D&D characters of mine, never mind the fact that their stories have ended because the campaigns have ended. Um, let's look at just Cat. There's definitely one thing that I know that you know that as the DM that
Hmm.
will never the others will never know. There's going to be secrets. There's going to be aspects that drive her character motivations, but will never see the light of day. It doesn't matter because that shaped who she is.
Yep. All right. So we've gotten through a lot of questions. We are on our final question.
Good timings. We have about
15 minutes
yeah,
left.
yeah.
Bale's grump.
Ha!
It depends. I mean, I as a DM would say that it depends on how much the characters are gonna pry, or how much Cat just doesn't want to say things, or that she doesn't even know. You know. Anyway, so
Yeah.
how long does it take for you to do all of the art for a page of a comic, approximately? So going
Um.
from a blank page to I can now hand this out.
So it used to be a lot faster, but it used to be a lot less detailed. If you look at my early pages, I was able to do 2 a week, which is unfathomable right now for me, especially with the pandemic. But anyway, the as it is right now, if I sat down and was really dedicated to it, I sketches the sketch stage, depending on the detail of the page, can be 1 or 2 days, which a day would be full 8 hours or something. 6 to 8 hours of drawing if I could. It's on a good day of keeping my hand nice and agreeable and not complaining. Uh, Otherwise, if it's an easier page, it's you know reusing backgrounds. I would like to reuse backgrounds. It will be a lot friendlier about getting that out. Inking doesn't take me that long. I know this is taking me longer because I'm talking through most of it. But if I was doing a regular page, it wouldn't take me that long. It'd probably take me under a day. And then coloring will definitely take me an entire day. So at best, if I was working at peak, I would be able to finish a page in 4 or 5 days, which is why they take a week now. Because obviously I'm not working nonstop for 4 days.
That makes sense. Can't really ask somebody to do that.
No. And
Tenchi says those brushes that line themselves are pretty rad, by the way.
oh yes, this is just literally me using the stroke effect on Photoshop. Uh, it's a technique that I picked up. I also have a filter. I think I showed it accidentally with Matt's beard here, but I can just show it. I'll undo this afterwards, but because I'm not done. It obviously has white behind it. Let's just pick pink or something. Yeah. But if I use my ghost filter, it's called Flaming Pear Ghost. That's free online. I've used it for years and pulled it through different versions of Photoshop. It automatically takes all the white out. Bam! There we go. So now you can, oops, now you can color it. Or if you do want, this is all stringy, you can just select and keep the color in there so that you could fill, do this, fill it, contract a little bit.
Tenchi is excited that you are showing toys.
Yes, I like Zen. It's auto-colored. Haha, look at that. I saved so much time. Alright. Now let's just go back because it's obviously not flat and not what I wanted. There we go. Yes. That is literally just the stroke effect.
Because technology.
Yep.
Agreed. AG. All right, so we're starting to get to the end of the stream here. We got about 13 minutes left. If you guys have any burning questions or anything that you want to know, now would be the time to ask, because who knows how long one of the questions is going to take.
Yes.
So if you guys have anything, or Vanessa, if you have anything to ask chat, I think you can
Let's see.
question.
Where would people, if they could send radio silence to a specific venue or even just a country or something, where would you want to see them go? If they're big enough to be, invited outside of Europe. Maybe one day they will actually go to these places when they're big enough.
Ink says Lee's Palace.
Interesting. It's an interesting choice for sure.
Red Rocks, Colorado.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because I believe that was a question on your personality quiz that got taken down on that one website.
Yeah.
That lasted all of like 24 hours.
Yep. I mean, that's a good question because I feel like, that one actually had specifics too, specific places. But yeah, it's an interesting question because obviously a lot of people usually pick somewhere close to them, which obviously is not a problem.
Just said, I'd love to see them in my favorite concert venue, which is about 30 minutes of a drive from my house.
Exactly. See, and I actually had someone who popped into comments in order to say, like, they don't usually comment on things, but they themselves had been to one of the venues that I had drawn. I think it was
That's cool.
Netherlands. I think it was the Netherlands one. And they're like, and that looks exactly like the concert that I had gone to. Only these angles you drew had much better seats than I did. I was like, I was like, yeah, well, yeah. It's good to know that I apparently accurately drew it, but I do obsessively research the venues that I'm including, down to a lot of them offer like blueprints of like their places, because obviously people need to plan events and need to know sizes of stuff. But I've literally recreated a lot of them in 3D in order to be like, okay, here's an angle that I need. That's excessive, but you know what I mean. I've done it because I am excessive and backgrounds are horrible.
So the background, yeah, there we go.
I hate backgrounds. And I hate that people love that my backgrounds, because it just encourages me more and pressures me more to do a good job with them.
Yep.
Something you would know a lot about, but pressuring.
Meteor shower. Well, it'd be cool if they came to America, but they probably wouldn't be going to Illinois where I live.
Who knows? It would be really fun, especially if, in the instance that they do go to America, I could, well, this would be in a pre-COVID world, it would have been a much easier time, but get references from people, be like, hey, yeah, if they are coming near you, and if you have photos from that you would love me to reference or use, by all means, pitch it to me. If I don't have to come up with it myself, that would be fantastic.
That actually brings in AG says, if you bring them here, I could help with all the details. I've been backstage and front stage and on stage. I'm occasionally a roadie and a stagehand.
See, there we go. Perfect. This is gonna
Ink
happen.
says, stop doing such amazing backgrounds and we'll stop talking about how amazing they are.
Excellent.
Heart.
All backgrounds are just gradients from now on. No one will never know where they are.
No more crowd scenes. Everyone's a stick figure.
God, if only. You know, I picked doing a band comic because I thought it would be fun to do the concert scenes because they had no backgrounds. That was literally a thought that came through my head, and yet they are the easily one of the most time-consuming parts of the entire comic.
Hmm. Tenchi says, I can help with Red Rocks because we went there to paint on the regular.
Nice. That would be a fun one.
All right. So that was a question for chat. Chat, do you have a question for us / Vanessa? Got 8 minutes before we close out the stream. Spoilers, a smaller venue than you think. Regarding Red Rocks.
I mean, Radio Silence is playing some big venues right now, but that's only because they're in what would be the equivalent of the Warp Tour. They're in the Twisted Tour. They themselves wouldn't be able to pull a venue that big, and certainly they don't have enough fans who would fill it either.
So Meteor Shower asks, how has your day been?
I've been a little bit stressed about this thing, that's for sure. But I guess it's going a little
Not
better
that's
than
bad.
I know. I didn't get to go and show off the other things, but I'm sure I'll get to those at some other point. I over prepared the amount of art, but I knew this was going to take a while. I just wanted to have something in order to doodle it if I got bored of this.
How many games are you DMing right now?
Actively,
Not probably not counting Fallen Chime and Ozeron.
why would I
And,
not count Fallen Chime? That one's one of the more active ones that I have.
because we haven't done it in like 3 weeks. But all right, fine. You can include those because you did DM for them.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. I have 1, 2, 3, and if you're not counting that one, that's not 4. But 4 would be the one I'm starting up, the homebrew one. So 4, and 3 of them are water deep, but technically 4 water deep and 1 homebrew that I'm going to start soon-ish.
We got Baby Adventures. We got Wholesome Group.
You got a Sneak Thief.
Sneak Thief game. Yep.
Yep. And my homebrew.
Yes, which would have started already had one of your players not had a literal life crisis.
Yeah, but we don't mind. We can. It gives me more time to work on it, which is never a bad thing.
That's true.
In that case, I'm going to quickly mention that yes, my homebrew, is a another AU of my main stuff. It will have the radio silence characters, but they are not obviously in radio silence. They are in roles around there. So you and my other players are going to have fun picking them out because they might not necessarily have the same names either.
Nope. So question for chat. 5 minutes remaining. Vanessa has a lot of sketches that she has done up. Would you like to see? She's gonna hit me. Would you like to see her stream more?
Oh no. Obviously, with the resounding silence, that is a no.
Well, hang on. Takes a second for the question to come through the chat.
No.
Yeah.
I just mean the silence between us because I'm pretending like they're here and no one has said anything. I'm not actually looking at the comments in the.
Ink says yes. AG8700 also says yes. Meteor says sure, as long as it doesn't stress her out. And Tenchi says C. So it seems like a lot of people will love to see you stream more.
Maybe they will. I always intend to, but the times that I'm like really revved up to do stuff, it's usually like what 2 in the morning, and I'm like, cool. I guess I could pre-record stuff and like stick them up on, I don't know, YouTube or something, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Would you guys? Though chat interaction is.
It is a lot of fun to have.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just literally me going a little bit nuts, talking to myself, which is what I do normally, and no one needs to see that.
Well, I mean, you could do Tuesdays. Kind of a weird day, but if it's a day that you have off and you can calm down and doodle and sketch.
Yeah, I guess that's there.
Maybe.
Maybe.
People are awake somewhere on the planet. This is true.
Apparently.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah. Okay. There's that. There's Ren. That beast took forever. But that hair of hers takes forever.
AG8700 says your late nights are my afternoons. That'd actually be perfect.
Well, there we go. See? Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Maybe
All right,
I'll-
2 minutes remaining. Probably have time for one more question.
Yeah,
4 a.m. for them right now. Woof.
woof. I mean, I've been up almost every night at 4 a.m., so I can totally understand.
Yeah. Not like you need to go to bed at a decent time or anything. Looks at literally everyone in the friend group, including Ink. For us, it is almost 9.
Yep.
Bale's immediately, ooh, Central Buddies. That's good, Ink. I understand your work has been a little hectic.
So, any last thoughts?
Okay, has Ren ever tried treatment for her sleeping problems?
Absolutely not. She has not. She does not acknowledge that she has them.
All right.
There's, yeah. It's probably a good idea for her to do that, sure. But try telling her that.
Will we hear much more about Colby's mother?
Yeah, we might. We very well might. Everyone's in the band will get an arc, and the loss of Colby's mother is a very important one to his growth.
You guys can't see me, but I'm doing eyebrow bumps because I also am interested in this because Colby is a sweet boy who deserves all of the love and attention he can get.
He absolutely does.
All right. Alrighty, guys, it is 9 o'clock. Thank you all so much for coming out and watching chat and participating with the questions and being such a lovely audience.
Yeah, and if you're watching this later on YouTube, thanks for checking it out, taking the time to join us. Check out the webcomic, and the art book, and Patreon if you enjoy my work. Be appreciated since this is basically my only income now that my Etsy is closed because yay COVID.
Yay, Cope.
Yeah, or our coffee. We have a coffee link in the corner. But yeah,
Yes, there's a coffee. If you guys want to support her work and her ability to live and buy food, coffee good.
yes.
Or just buy coffee in general. But all right.
All right.
Thank everyone for coming by. We're gonna sign off.
Yeah.